in bachelor's, so I must have some school education. That is a pre-qualification. So what qualification is required before we start the journey of the self-discovery? Sadhan Chatushtay, fourfold qualification. And what is the first one? First one is a qualified seeker. Okay, so you see the first one is the qualified seeker. So that qualified seeker means I have to talk about the result. I should know the four connection. And that is the beginning of the first topic, and I would say the first part of the first topic. So qualified seeker, okay. So what is the subject matter? Subject matter is to know the real self. Who am I? What is the supreme self? So here the master goes in a different route. Master says, do you want to understand, respect, and regard that real self and the supreme self are one and the same? That real self is the God in you. So God and the real self are one. So here he starts it.
It should be oneness.
It should be oneness. It should be oneness. But then how it is oneness, why it is one, and what is the difference between our thinking, daily living is totally different. So how to bridge this gap? So he says that, we should understand clearly. Yes, it should be one, you are right. So respect and regard, real self and the supreme self are one and the same. So that is the topic he starts as the first topic. So I have divided that into one or two sessions as our discussion continues. So it means indirectly his focus is on fourfold connection, and then he says that, okay, by constant listening, you do nothing but you are listening and listening, Shravan and Manan, ultimately you become a seeker. You realize that. So we will focus on what is required for self-discovery. What is required? What is required is self-awareness. What is required is self-awareness. So that real self-awareness, not the way we are aware. We are aware of the body, the mind, the intellect, the TV, and that is okay. We need not to touch it. But there is a real self-awareness. But how to get that real self-awareness? By the knowledge of the real self. And that is why the Shravan is important. We will go extremely logical. Maharishi Raman, Sri Aurobindo, Swami Chinmayan, my master, they said, no, you have to understand it clearly. In Bhakti Yoga, our qualification is helplessness. What is helplessness? I don't know anything. You know God, you know everything. So we have already separated God from us. So here the real self and the God are one. The real self and the supreme self, how they are one. Can you start the journey from there? Can you start the journey from there? Then we can become a qualified seeker, and then so the entire journey, fundamentally, we discussed about it, that there are about, you can say, almost 85% of the text belongs to Karma Kanda. Karma kanda means that you perform this ritual, you do the practice of this mantra, you will get this power. Everything is there, including kundalini. Another, I would say 20, or I would say 15%, no, 20%, 85% or 10%. Yes, 10% are devoted to the worship of this God and that God, how to achieve certain powers and continue to live the life of pleasures. Only the 5% of the text discusses about the knowledge of the real self. So now the question comes, should we leave that 85% or 10%? The answer is no, because I have to live the material world, a personal life, a professional life, a social life, a family life. We should find out the bridge between discovery of the real self and living our outer life. If you are a monk, you can drop the 85% and 10%. But if I am living a life, professional life, personal life, then I have to pick up certain conventional methods how to remain connected to the external world and continue our journey of the self discovery. So the next question comes that how to start studying any branch of knowledge of the Eastern wisdom. Whether we study Patanjali Yoga Sutra, there is a pre-qualification. I told you Athi Yoga Anushashanam. The Atha represents Anubandha Chatushtaya, the fourfold connection. Patanjali says Ath means now you are a seeker. I will give you the knowledge of yoga from beginning to an end. That is the meaning of Ath. So a traditional teacher always reminds and makes aware of the seeker these fourfold connection, because we have already undergone, so it becomes easy for us to understand. We should ask these questions: who, what, why, then connect to the knowledge of the Eastern wisdom. So in fourfold connections, we have the first connection is qualified seeker. So that is further connected to fourfold sadhan chatushtaya. But at present we are focused on qualified seeker, the student who is addressed and committed to learn. Subject matter. So here the master says real self and the supreme self are one. Oh God, what you have done. No, what you have done, it's sitting in you. And the result should be, what should be the result? We say self-realization, we say awakening, but what is that self-realization? So here he says that do you experience and know and discover that you and the supreme self are one? If you are one, you feel you are all pervading, you are all knowing. All the attributes of that God is realized. You don't feel any kind of limitation. You don't feel any kind of dissatisfaction. You don't feel any kind of any layer of ignorance. You don't see unhappiness in your entire being. So the goal mostly is the same, but the approach has become a little different. So, and then comes, once we understand these three factors, then we should connect them. in our mind. What is the relationship between the result? At present, I feel I am a limited being, and result will be I become an unlimited being, all pervading, which is already within me. That real self is of the nature of the Supreme Self, one reality, non dual self. We talk about Advaita. Maharishi Raman also says Advaita. So the journey should be very clear. I should connect. I, as a qualified seeker, we will understand who is this I, subject matter, and the result. The moment this master says, if we are not clear about the subject, who am we take it for granted, then we continue to live in ignorance. Ignorance is impurity, it is a disease, it is Maya, it is a wrong notion. This young guy who had 3 love affairs and they all were faith. After 3 years, he had the 4th love affair. He started dating. And after a week, he did not attend 2 of my sessions. Third session, he said, no, I want to talk to you for a few minutes. And when he started talking, he was totally frustrated. He said, I broke up and now I'm waiting for her phone to come to me so that at least I will continue my relationship. Why you want to build a relationship? Ah, I don't know. He's totally frustrated and he told me that I may resort to drinking. I am too much frustrated because I broke up this relationship. I said, did you not learn from the previous 3 dating and 3 relationships? He said, what should I do? I feel. I said, feeling means what? Feeling means experience. Don't you experience mirror as water? Yes, I experience, but is your experience true? Earth is stationary. Don't you experience Earth is stationary? Yes, I experience. But is it true? So why you lay too much of stress on your experience, which is true? What should I do? I am frustrated. This is my frustration. I will resort to drinking. This is your feeling and experience. It is different from the knowledge. Why don't you examine it? Why don't you examine it? So at least after an hour he calmed down and he said, no, I will now continue to work on in this area. So if we are not clear about the subject matter, who am I claim all my experiences is me. And all the experiences takes place in the mind. But I am not the mind, so all my experiences are subject to examination and subject to understanding. So if I do not understand this, if I get carried away, then I suffer. So this master says, if we do not recognize disease, treatment is not possible. Then I do not want a treatment and I am happy to live in the world, claiming the source of pleasure and happiness in the world. But that world is Maya. I have repeated hundreds of times to everyone, Buddha says the world is suffering. Is my mind 100% sure that this world outside is the suffering? Our mind at one corner realizes you say what is right, but the moment my mind leaves that knowledge, I see the world is full of pleasure. I don't see the world is full of suffering. No, I understand it. So when you understand, then why you are fully busy in the world? You are only busy in order to seek the pleasure. Are you busy in order to seek pain when the world is suffering? So it does not mean that I should leave my professional activities, personal activities, my responsibility. But if my mind is totally engaged, that causes the ignorance. That causes the ignorance. So then what is the solution? Keep on listening, understanding. Master says, keep on listening. I will clarify everything. Why you are fully busy, why you feel stress, why you feel anxiety, why you feel duality and a conflict. Focus on that the real self and the supreme self are one. So, what happens because this mind that lives in ignorance keeps the attachment alive? You like pasta, for example. It's all a matter of self awareness, and that goes into the background. Your mind says, okay, maybe I can eat anything. But you go to the restaurant and the past impression triggers your mind, and you say, oh, do you have pasta? Yes, bring it. So I enter into a mode of non thinking. Pasta gives me the pleasure. Same thing happens with the sex, same thing happens with the sleep, same thing happens with wearing a clothes. So we lose that track of awareness, self awareness, and then false conception again returns to our mind. It causes the impurity. Whether you say it is impurity, whether you say it is maya, whether you say it is disease, it is the same thing. We don't recognize. To recognize is moving to knowledge. Not to recognize is living in ignorance. So it is not that, I should be very attentive, focused, and have a sad face. There is an inner awareness. You live in a little higher level of awareness while living your life all the time. Outside, you are totally casual. Come back to the fourfold connections 24 by 7. The best approach, Master says, you think, speak, and act, remembering these fourfold connections. I am suffering. Take an example. I am suffering. It is my experience today and in the past. Do I want to continue to be in the state of suffering? I don't think so. If I want to continue in the state of the suffering, I start living unconsciously, habitually, and impulsively. I have to recognize that. If I think fourfold connection demands what it demands, I should drop the thought and the past impressions that triggers my life. Another point that this master raises that you focus on, am I worthy of suffering? So what will happen if you think, am I worthy of suffering? I have started the journey of the Eastern wisdom, and then the first lesson is that real self is the supreme self. Supreme self never suffers. So if I am suffering, it is due to the ignorance. Let me examine and find out and drop the way my mind is functioning. I should enter into a cognitive ability. I should become aware. That awareness is known as living from a moment to moment. I should, that I is the mind, that I should drop, dissolve, reject the idea coming from the same mind that I am worthy of suffering. Why I should reject? Because I'm living in ignorance. That's why my mind claims that I'm suffering. First in the thought, then in my speech, then in my action. I said, what is the big deal? You already have three affairs, and this is the fourth one. Do you want to learn a lesson? Or do you want to continue to think? Yes, you see that, sir, if she calls me now, all my problems will be solved. I said, hang up. I will call you. No, your calling does not solve the problem. So do you see it as a problem? He said, yes, this is the problem. I said, where lies the problem? That undesirable desire entered into a delusion. Delusion has created an ego. Now, ego is your problem. If she calls, all the problems will be solved. Do you see how the mind starts with the impurity, with the disease, enters into a delusion, an obsession, and now it is stuck with the ego? So I told him that, is it possible that I know who is, she is also my student. So I asked him that maybe I don't know her, but do you allow me to call her and tell you to say you that I love you? If that solves the problem. So this is all is happening in the mind that we do not examine. And when we do not examine, I'm living in ignorance. I'm carried away by these impulses, by the habit. And that is why the Master says, I must understand the fourfold connection by receiving a call, in this case, from her. Is it the subject matter? Answer, this is not the subject matter. Subject matter that I love you, why don't you love me? That is the subject matter. So you deviated, you distorted the subject matter, your goal is not clear. You will suffer. Anyhow, he said that no, we will continue our journey. So here I will repeat. We have to contemplate and reflect on this. For any action, every action, the knowledge is first. Then there is a desire. And then desire prompts me to action. These three factors are very important. Every master educates the seeker in a different way. Janati, let me know it. So when I know that here is a pasta and pasta is a good food, then only I will have a desire. Without knowing, I cannot have a desire. And once I have a desire, mind says fulfill the desire by an action. So knowledge first. What is the knowledge? Knowledge comes by the thought. Thought is a product of knowledge. See, every thought contains an object plus I am is the thought. I know you, so I plus you is a thought. And we have to realize our real self even by thought. That we will talk later. So knowledge is first, then there is a desire, and then there is we prompt for an action. I'm deviating little bit so that I will repeat it again. Knowledge means I am a knower, and that mind is a knower. So when the mind works through the sense organs, it becomes the knower. When the mind works through the motor organs, it becomes a doer.
Yeah.
But neither knower nor doer exist. That is the problem of ignorance. It creates a false sense of I, knower and experiencer. That is why Krishna says, Karma Yoga, Nitya Karma, I is not there. You have to drop it. So I deviated and let us come back. So we will talk about this. Who will study the Eastern wisdom is the first factor. The answer is simple: qualified seeker. Why he will study, why he should study, that confirms our result, the end of suffering, end of ignorance. What to study? Who am I? So until this mind realizes that I do not know who am I cannot connect my real self with the supreme self.
But it's clear that mind cannot know who am I.
So it means what? It means the same thing. Buddha says the world is suffering. I say the world is full of pleasure. So I am not, my mind, intellect understands, but the mind goes back to the past impression and it forgets. And that forgetfulness is ignorance. So the master says reorientation is required. You keep on listening until ultimately the time comes when the mind realizes, oh, I was living in ignorance for so many years and now I realize this is the problem. So here again, you should be very clear that what to study. Knowledge of the real self, that is one. Only one. But before I study, I should get the knowledge of the real self. I should also understand what prevents me to know the real self. And that prevention is nothing but what we say the ignorance or the Maya. But how the Maya takes cover? Now see, in a very simple language, at what time I wake up? I woke up at 5 a.m. So my mind is now already in ignorance. I claim I am a waker. I am a sleeper. I am a dreamer. Do I have, do I live into that awareness? The world is suffering. The waker, sleeper, and the dreamer belongs to the world outside. Do I live into that state? I just need to be aware. But that awareness comes, you are constantly listening. So you separate yourself from the three states of the mind. You separate yourself from the five panchakosha. You separate yourself from the three bodies. And you see the real self is here and now. So this master says, a seeker is normally connected with the knowledge of the real self is the first connection. And that becomes the subject matter, and we already know the result that we want to achieve. He also discusses another point that why Master starts fourfold connection in the journey of the self-discovery. He wants us to realize the power of intellect. Power of intellect means I can receive the knowledge, I can retain the knowledge, I can realize the knowledge. I covered in previous, I'm just summarizing. So many repetitions will take place, but for one purpose. We are given two great powers as the power of the existence. Do you remember the power to receive the knowledge and to realize that knowledge? Realize that knowledge to I have to put into action. I have to put into action. I heard about this master, so then I got the knowledge and I already knew about this master. So then I put that into an action. I traveled there and came back. No other living species has the power to receive the knowledge and change their behavior and action. Only we have. So once we are clear about this fourfold connection, only this master says there is a general fourfold connection and there is a special fourfold connection. It is his, you can say, the extreme extraordinary power of wisdom. No other masters in this journey have ever questioned fourfold connection. We have understood it. He says no, there is a two types of fourfold connection. There is a general and there is a specific. General, we understand, we listen to it. You have already had qualified seeker, subject matter, result. This is what the general, you take it, you don't question. But what is specific? That he is going to make us understand. If you are 100% clear about what is the general fourfold connections, so he discusses in about 11 topics, and specific he discusses about in more than 60 topics. The moment we cover these two chapters, we are already at a high level. So, in a general, we have already understood. In a specific fourfold connection, he makes us understand what exactly is the intense desire in the mind, intense desire to know the real self. Can you live in that intense desire mode 24 by 7? The way this young guy lived in intense obsession with the girl. He was living, he was not able to come out from that fever of that obsession. Can I have that fever of obsession for the real self? Then the progress is faster. No, so it means that I should not do anything. No, no change anything outside. So, how we have to find out? This master goes on in detail. We want to find out why we should have an intense desire to end the suffering. Again, I'm deviating and come back again in a one or two liner. Why we should have an intense desire to end suffering. Suffering are three types. Do you remember? Physical suffering, mental suffering, natural calamities, only the three kinds of suffering, three kinds of the suffering. Why should I have an intense desire to end suffering? Leave that question. Let me ask in a different way. That what makes me to have an intense desire to end the suffering? Answer is simple. At every moment in my life, I feel limitedness. I feel a sense of dissatisfaction. I feel a sense of unhappiness in me. So, am I aware of that limitation all the time in my waking state causes the intense desire to bring an end to the suffering? Ramakrishna says you need only 3 days if you have that intense desire. I'm linking this with the Ramakrishna. You need only 3 days that your mind has such an intense desire to bring an end to the suffering. Only for 3 days, everything will happen. What covers minutely go what covers the mind, attitude of the mind goes back to the same word, the mind picks up the same thing again and again, like this young guy. He had his fourth affair. Thanks God, he's lucky. So he was asking me that, what do you mean? Should I not have any affair? I said, who told you? Did I say you? No. Now you see how the mind is working. I said there are two options. I should know whether I follow what is right and good. How to know what is right and good? Should I focus on myself first or should I focus on the girl first? No, I should focus on myself. So, do you know what is right and good for you to do? Ah, that's a good question. He told me that no, first I should set myself right. I said, forget about her. First, set yourself right. That is what Arjuna said to the Krishna. Please guide me what is right and good for me. Shreyas. Now see the path of the Shreyas. Now come back from the same deviation, return. What knowledge we have in the Eastern wisdom, that is our subject matter. So I simply always talk about it. Who am I? What is the nature of the world? And what is the Supreme Self? So once I know and understand it, then I can make out whether the Supreme Self and the real Self are one or not. So this master says, understand it. So it helps us to understand our true nature. It helps us to understand whether there is a God outside. Should I go to the temple, worship, pray, do the mantra, or should I recognize the same God inside? Again, I'm using a false statement. We have to understand whether that real self is inside the body and outside the body. Are you getting it? So we will explore each and every aspect.
But for me, it's not like this. It's not inside, not outside.
Yeah. Fact is that the body is in the real self. Inside the body, which is in the real self, is the mind. Inside the body and in the mind, there is an intellect. But we should be very clear. You are right in saying so. what topic you are teaching. Are you crazy? I have to live my personal life, professional life, social life. So this master raises the question by itself and answers. So he raises the question, does the Eastern wisdom has a right to exist as a knowledge?
But
He goes to
what
such a height.
what means has a right? Knowledge is knowledge.
Knowledge is knowledge, but knowledge of the real self, knowledge of the Eastern wisdom, does it have a right to exist? Yes, because I must
Everything that
know what I am and what I am not, what is suffering and what is not. So he says that it has 100% right to exist. It is the knowledge of all the knowledges. Arvindo, Master Arvindo, and even Maharshi Raman, indirectly, he did not raise the right question, but he says, no, it has a right to exist because as long as I do not know who am I was given a free intellect and a action on that knowledge to realize my real self to bring an end to the suffering. Do you study astronomy? Yes. Do to understand biology? No. Do you study astronomy to understand biology? No. So we can take a reference but focus on the principles of biology. Same thing, the knowledge of who am I, what is the nature of the world, what exactly is the real self or the God or the Supreme Self is there in the Eastern wisdom. It has right to exist and we have a right to study, recognize and realize our true nature. He has written about 200 years ago, perhaps 200 years, you can say, when the scientific discovery has already started. Now it's almost 300 years. So he says that we are not asking you to reject the knowledge of the science. He says that you respect the knowledge of the Eastern wisdom the way you respect the knowledge of the science. Knowledge of my smartwatch, my smartphone, electricity, and all these gadgets. Please respect this knowledge of the Eastern wisdom, which is very close to you, it is very dear to you. You should know who am I. He makes it very clear about it. But why you should know? Because to remove the ignorance. Why to remove the ignorance? To bring an end to the suffering. What is that suffering? Do you realize that you are constantly, even when you are not experiencing the pain is hidden in you. That is why you should study the Eastern wisdom. Otherwise, in future, this problem will come up again. So, in my language, in my understanding, he says Eastern wisdom is like a prescription drug. Or I would say Eastern wisdom is like a doctor, and their principles are like a prescription drug. It all depends on the seeker. Based on the disease, doctor prescribes take these pills twice every day, 3 times a day, for a week, come back again. Same thing applies. These principles, practices, methods, small or big, acts like the prescription drug. Eastern wisdom is the doctor, not a teacher. There is no teacher outside. Eastern wisdom acts as a teacher. Come back. We are still into this first regard and respect. We have to cover that idea, that understanding. Master says that Satchidanand is you and the God or the existence. If we are real self, if we are Sachidanand, then the supreme consciousness is also God, existence. Then we are the supreme consciousness as the real self. How many times my mind realizes that God is separate, sitting in a temple. How many times I feel existence is separate from me. All the time. All the time.
But we are doing exercise. Imagine the Shiva inside our heart.
Yeah, yeah. So that is the path of, I told you, 85%, 10%, 5%. So that belongs to 10%. Yes, but we will examine that why we do that. Why we do that and why should we do that and why should we not do that. This master has covered almost every topic. So, what message he conveys is such a beautiful way to present it. The moment I say that real self and the supreme self are one, but do I live into that state of the consciousness? No. I always feel that I'm separate from the existence outside. I feel that God is superior to me. I am bound. I am limited. God is unlimited. I, I experience a state of unhappiness. God is a permanent happiness. Am I not moving in ignorance and wisdom, happiness and sorrow? You have to remove that. So, starting by understanding that real self, supreme consciousness, or existence, or Satchidanand is one and the same, but I still have lot of doubts in the mind. So, those doubts must be removed by receiving the knowledge, by retaining the knowledge, by realizing the knowledge to prove, mind, you are wrong. It is because of your impurity, it is because of the ignorance you feel you are separate from the real self, you are separate from the Satchidanand, but the fact is that you are not. So the first topic I made a heading, regard and respect. Real self and the supreme self are one. Do I believe or accept what master says? If you start with a belief pending inquiry, then the journey will continue. If you don't believe, the journey will stop, even if you are listening to me. Even if you are listening to these principles of the Eastern wisdom. Believe, let us believe. And then we start inquiring how we are one. So now I will translate as it is the first verse by this master. I am, I am that pure and the infinite self who is Sachidanand, all pervading, basis of all the name and the form. I am that pure Sachidanand, who is the basis of all the world of name in the form. What is the world of name in the form? Tiger, mosquito, house, car, name in the form. Then he says, I am Hari. Hari is the name of Krishna. I am Vishnu. I am Shiva. Ganesha. Pay attention. I am Krishna, Shiva, Vishnu, Ganesha, an object of meditation. That is what you told me, that we meditate on Shiva inside the heart. I am. He says, I am. Ganesha, an object of meditation for highest seekers. Then he writes, if I associate myself, Krishna, Shiva, Ganesha, as separate from me, I associate myself that you are my God and I am your seeker, is illusion, is ignorance, is false knowledge. As long as our mind continues to meditate Shiva or Ganesha as an object of meditation, I am living in a delusion. But it is applicable only to a qualified seeker. But then there are many questions that comes to the mind. So he raises all the doubt as in the form of a question and then he answers. So wait, we are going slowly. We are seeker. So what he said, that Krishna, in a different way, Krishna manifest as this name in the form. Krishna manifested as name in the form of a Michael, of Taurus, of all the beings. That Krishna manifested wherever you see name in the form. There the existence is. Where I see the wave, there is water. So I recognize only in the form of a wave, I forget the water. Even the water is present there and then. I remember the storm, I remember the tsunami, I forget the water. Primary seeker, beginning of a seeker. Now it will help you to understand. When you are beginning, I have lot of suffering, okay. But you are the real self, two part. Then the suffering comes from the world. There is a triangular format. So this master says, no, we have to start with the binary format. Do you still remember triangular format, binary format? So he says that matter and consciousness are only the two formats. You cannot separate the individual consciousness with the supreme consciousness. Individual consciousness means I. Supreme consciousness is the God. No, you cannot divide it. Only there are two binary format. There is only matter, there is only consciousness. Only two format.
So individual consciousness is also matter in this case.
Individual consciousness, because we have added consciousness. Individual consciousness at present we will take it as supreme consciousness. That I am Sachidan. So I am as an individual consciousness. I am Sachidan. So one format, and second is the matter. Matter, unconsciousness. Again, make it clear what I am and what I am not. I am not mouse. I am not mouse. But when I say I am not God, I am refusing the existence of a God. That we are going to take up. How come? Look at it. This is mouse. This means I am not.
Yeah.
Huh? This kitchen, I am not. So what I am not is matter.
Okay.
So when I say this is God,
Yeah, it means it's matter.
it's a matter. What I'm doing. Such a greater level of ignorance. I'm living into it. This blows your mind. He says, do you understand? Master repeats it again and again. Did you understand matter and consciousness? This means in Sanskrit language, in the East and West, we say idam, I am not. This, I am not. And I am not. So I am is known as ahem, I am not is known as, yes, you picked up the moment I say this is God, this is temple, come on. I'm refusing. I'm saying, God, you are a matter. You are
But
unconscious.
with other person, when I say this is you, it means I reject you.
Fact is that we are rejecting all the time. And then we want to create an association after rejecting it. We will talk about it. That's a so because of these two binary, he says no. Did you understand? He says binary format. Only
So you didn't teacher, it means it's the same. I cannot say you are teacher. You cannot say
yes,
I'm student
yes,
because we automatically reject each other.
yes. We reject the name and the form. What we reject, we are rejecting the ignorance. That will come later. Yes, your questions are valid, and that will help us to. So we are in fact rejecting the name and the form. I love you and you hate me. So we are talking of the body mind complex. Look at it. This guy, look at it. We simply need an understanding and a knowledge. Oh, what a great guy he is. Real self is indicated by Satchidanand, absolute existence, consciousness, and bliss. At present, I know there is a consciousness. Because I'm conscious, that's why I know you. So, the consciousness is always greater than what is not conscious. And if I say the God is the greatest, obviously, he has to be a supreme consciousness. And hence, I am also a consciousness. Obviously, it's a binary format. So I need not to go to the temple, religion. No, not at all. Let me say namaste to myself. Let me say namaste. You see that? That namaste he is doing to Ganesha. You have a name in the form. That Ganesha is me, but now he's not saying that Ganesha is different from me. That Ganesha is me, that Krishna is me, that Shiva is me. I am doing namaste to myself. Ashtavakra says, I do namaste to myself. There is only one real self, all pervading. He doesn't talk about the gods and goddesses. He directly goes to the unitary format. That's why it is considered the highest text. But it is very difficult for a normal seeker to grasp what the Ashtavakra is saying to the Janaka. So that's why I picked up the first chapter of the Ashtavakra Gita in the beginning. Do you remember? I wanted to take you to this journey. So first chapter I picked up and then I said, no, now come to this binary format, because the moment if I go to the second chapter, the mind is not ready to accept. Now see that how this master goes. Let me pick up one more, and so that you can think of it. So he raises the question. He becomes a seeker inside, and he becomes a master inside. That is the beauty. So he is raising a question. Oh, you raise the question. Point it out. So you are talking of the indivisible consciousness. That indivisible consciousness has a name and the form, and that supreme consciousness does not have a name and the form, does not have a shape and size. So are you opposing the entire knowledge of the Eastern wisdom? You're talking of opposite? What do you mean? The master has now become a seeker. And the seeker is asking a question that, are you crazy? Personality is with the name and the form and attributes, limited. God has no name in the form, no attribute. God is infinite, all pervading. What you are talking? How the two are one? Master says, I will show you. I will show you that I am Sachidanand. So you are. And then the second objection, you have to think of it. Second objection he raises. That is the beauty. He says that when you both are one, then why you say that I pray Ganesha as myself? You are inconsistent with the teaching. You are confusing me. He says, no, no, wait. We will understand. That's where the 11th topic comes. Now, so when we have clarity of understanding, okay, this is a simple answer, but we have to think of it before we leave this journey. That is why every master gives the metaphor of a snake and a rope. Does the snake exist? No. But do you see the snake and experience it? Yes. So I experience Ganesha. What's the problem? Do you experience the mirage water? Yes. Does mirage water exist? No. So should I talk about mirage water? Yes. I'm Ganesha. Where is the problem? No, but he goes deeper. He says, no, you have to listen to it. I will give you all the references. He says, I will teach you. He gives references of great masters, Upanishads. Ultimately, the Upanishad is the basic teaching, cream of the teaching. So he brings back the references of the Upanishads. As I told you, that he studied all the text, how great the master was, and he grasped everything. Not out of the ego, he says, because I studied everything, I have realized this state, so that you can realize by reading my text, by Shravan, Manan, and Nididhyas. So the masters are asking that, what about other texts? Now, other texts are also, every text is